All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Dawn. This time we're missing Grayson because I think he's a bozo. But this time I got JP with me still.
Still in a new
And then
house.
now we got Richie back again. I think
up,
you're the first
guys?
second timer.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So,
Better than Grayson today.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it? So we're fresh off the weekend of 3 regionals, or I guess 2 regionals and a treasure cup. You know, big difference. I guess one you just don't get the cool cereal top 8, but
True.
anyway, so
Right.
so San Diego, online treasure cup, Wisconsin regional, and I guess the key thing is that only San Diego was a top cut event, and we cut to 32. Was that right, Richie?
Yeah.
So yeah, overall in terms of results, I think pretty much all of us on the team played. JP, you played in the online treasure cup, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just start with San Diego regional since me and Richie are here. Me, I scrubbed. Happens. Ran into 2 bad matchups. What do you do? Played Lucci. Me and Grayson ended up running the same 50 for the 2 different regionals. I just didn't do particularly well, but we'll get into how Grayson did later. Richie played Dofi, and you want to talk about your run, Richie?
Actually, let me pull up my matchups real quick.
And pull out your matches. Let me pull up your list too. So
Blaze,
Richie ended up topping
fourth down.
4th down. Richie ended up topping, and honestly, pretty standard except for the 2 techs. But let's talk about your matchups first. Let's start there, and then we'll get into the deck list.
Yeah. So round 1 was Yamato. Round 2 Smoker. Round 3 Nami. Round 4 Mirror. Round 5 was BY Luffy. Round 6 was Lucci, which was my first loss. Kind of just couldn't keep up. Round 7 was BY. Round 8 was another Smoker. Round 9 was Bonnie, and then round 10 was the Mirror, which was my second loss, but that was on me because I actually threw my game in time. I should have won, but I threw it, so it's okay. I was just a little tired.
Yeah. So overall, like, you pretty much beat everything that you were supposed to, and then like you kind of like, not that you're hard on favorite versus Lucci or anything, but like
Right.
you're kind of like not. It's expected if you lose, you know, like not a surprise.
Right. I think it just
And the
goes either
Mirror-
way sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the Mirror's same thing. So it sounds like pretty solid. And then in Top Cut, you played the Mirror.
Yes, I played the Mirror. I lost 0-2. He honestly played it very well, but I definitely threw my second game because I just did the math wrong for lethal and didn't account for like the Sengoku swing on the board. So in the end, I gambled for a 2K when I should have just gambled for a 1K off of life, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. I mean, top eight games are rough, but I guess let's talk about your list, and then we can maybe talk about the list that you lost to in Top Cut. So, pretty standard, I think. Like, besides the 2 Mihawks here, let's talk about like, did you like the Mihawks?
The Mihawks were pretty good to me. Honestly, throughout the whole day during Swiss, I think they were pretty good to me. It surprisingly came up because like I played 2 Smokers and versus I guess just like versus black decks in general, you have like very small windows to drop Mihawk where if you feel as if they can't respond with a Moria or if you feel they burned all their cost reduction, you can kind of just slam this Mihawk and most people aren't like expecting it, so it just catches them off guard. But the big thing was just like I wanted to play a top end that gave me tempo. It's really good into Bonnie, really good into BY, it was very good into both of those matchups. Specifically Bonnie, I think a lot of people just tend to like struggle with Bonnie, but my build is geared towards like 4 Jozu, 2 Mihawk, so it's not like too bad as long as you see your pieces right.
Yeah, as long as you see the pieces that bounce, because like Bonnie's, it's hard when the 5 costs hit the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where you're at. Did you like the Piranhas? Like, so far in the Dofi list, I think if you just... We're not going to take the time to go through every single Dofi list, but, like, people are kind of split whether Piranha's good or not. Did you end up, like, liking them throughout the day?
I've always been a big fan of Piranha. I think, specifically into, like, matchups like Lucci, where you're just kind of digging for as many Jinbeis as possible to kind of, like, swarm the board because you know that you can't go later. It's just really good for those kind of matchups where like you really need to dig, right? You need to look at your top 5 and be like, okay, the next 3 turns, these cards are not going to be useful to me. I need to bottom the stack and then look for a new stack with potentially like Jinbei or Boas or something. But I think overall, like Piranha's just really good because you need to fill up your 1-drop count. especially if you're playing as many Josus as I am, because it's like you have 4 laws, and then if you have 3 or more Josus, you need a 1 cost usually to bounce back, so you get enough value for your Josus and your laws at least.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, and then before we talk about more the other regionals, like I guess let's compare it to one list. Do you remember what his name was? That the one that you lost in Top Cut?
Yeah, that was his name was Mark.
Mark.
He's playing an interesting list.
Yeah, he was playing an interesting list where like he took the exact opposite approach, right? Where he didn't run the top end, but he decided to run 4 Gravity Blade, which I thought, which I think like so far, you kind of really can't go wrong with any Dofi list. Like you just kind of pick the tech that you want. But I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
I think he was obviously gearing his list more towards, I want to say it's more towards the Mirror and maybe like Bonnie. This is honestly one of those lists where you kind of just like sit there and pray you don't run into an L. But yeah, also BY, sorry.
Yeah.
But I just think like for my experience, at least playing him in the Mirror, I think he played it very well. When you look at like my list and you see that I'm playing 4 Josu, 4 and 2 Mihawk, like you have to consider that most of my turns are going to be very impactful when I have a teach already established on the board. So I think versus like a build versus mine, that you can just like keep bouncing the teach, which is what he did. And then essentially when I play the Josu and I have like Josu teach on board, he can just he has like a really good opportunity to just Gravity Blade both those. And then if he has teach on board, he can establish another body and then kind of take over from there.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think maybe like the big takeaway in terms of like Dofi list was like Teach was just like super good. I know people are back and forth on it maybe beforehand, but like I don't know, if you played the deck a lot, like Teach is just nuts. Like,
I agree.
This card
honestly,
is way
like
too much.
As someone who was not a Teach believer before, I was shown the way, and then now I've seen the light of this card. I used to view it as like you just have to like ignore the fact you don't view it as a -1 from your hand. You view it as this guy is getting you 2 free Dawn every turn and allowing you to swing 7 and play your leader effect for 1 Dawn.
Yeah, basically.
Nuts.
Like it's
insane. Insane card.
Yeah, so like definitely in the future, like I would be surprised if we see Dofi lists that like end up at less than 3, maybe even 2. I don't know if I would even consider 2 copies to Teach, but like it's gonna be high numbers to Teach from this point forward, right? Like the deck is too flexible and too good with it.
One thing I wanted to say going into this weekend was like I think I had a little bit more prep into the Mirror versus a lot of other people. So like kind of finding out that Teach was more valuable in the Mirror is like one thing, but I did notice that the guy who went to top 4, he was only playing 2 Teach. So, you know, there's like something to be said there. Maybe he just sees it in the games that he needs it. But it's also one thing to note that you only need the 1, usually.
Yeah, you only ever need to see the 1. But I will admit, like, his list is kind of like everywhere. Like, we got a little bit of everything, which is like, I guess, like, that's a deck building philosophy thing that, like, I don't really like seeing lists like this. But at the same time, you see so many cards.
Let's say it's
like, you should see
almost
so many
toolboxy because you just see everything. With that,
right?
With those 11 or 10 cards there with Buggy, Piranha, Sengoku,
and Dofi.
Yeah. So like if you have it all,
so like it's an interesting deck building style, I guess I would say. Like I'm not sure. Like I don't think I imagined Dofi that much as a toolboxy deck, so I wouldn't have built the list this way.
Yeah, I look at it like Gecko in that sense. So it's like if like because ACOS Kid is a problem legitimately. So it's like 2 Red Rock, and then an L is a problem. So 2 Red Rock, 2 Dragon. I don't know. It makes it's a more balanced list, I think, which is why I like this one so much. You're not just saying I have to beat the Mirror. You're saying I want to have a shot at beating everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I guess like overall, I will like since we have a leader breakdown here for San Diego, I will say I think I was very surprised that Lucci ended up as 2nd most played. I mean, I guess maybe it shouldn't be because people are just so used to playing Lucci at this point, and like Dofi is not straightforward. Especially like the Dofi versus Lucci matchup, I think it's not very intuitive for a lot of people. I don't know how you guys feel
as
about
Dofi
that.
or as Lucci?
As Dofi. Like I feel like maybe like it's not intuitive that like if there's a Brook on board, like it's very ignorable a lot of the times, right? And you should be going face a lot more than you think you should.
Right.
Things like that. And like choosing your bounce targets is hard, and like balancing like the value of bounce law against like bouncing like a Lucci. Like if you bounce the Lucci and they double clear you, is that good? Or like can't you just leave it on board and like 2k out, stuff like that? So I think it's not very intuitive for a lot of players. So I guess maybe it should have made sense that Lucci it still ended up being very high rep. I mean, I thought it was gonna be like top 3 or 4. I just thought BOI would have beat out Lucci.
BOI is still hard to play though. That's the only issue.
Yeah.
Like Lucci, like at its core, is still I want to clear as much as possible every turn, whereas BY into Dofi is like, it's BY favored for sure, but or it gets like with equal skill players, so to speak. But
yeah,
the issue is that it's still stressful. Like it's just a stressful match because you can just be like, you got that pudding? Ah, shit, you did. Ah, I guess I lose. Like,
oh, this guy opened double Jimby in the first 2 turns. He's running my hand for literally all the counter.
Yeah,
it's like, oh,
running your pockets.
He bottom decked my only Sabo. Oh god.
Oh
my god.
Yeah, so
he bounced my Rebecca and then putting it back. Now I don't have Rebecca in trash. Things like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of complex stuff there. I don't know. So BY became harder to play because you just have more matchups that you have to know really, really well. Just,
fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of the leader breakdown for this regional, you guys find anything else very surprising? I think for me, I really didn't think Purple Luffy would be. I mean, it's not like it's the most represented here, but like I really did not think that many people were gonna take Purple Luffy because just like the matchup versus Dofi is so dog sometimes. Like,
I think it's a high roll,
right?
I don't know.
It is a high roll deck.
Yeah.
It's like partially a high roll, but also just because like the deck is not easy. I think people have like this misconception about Pluffy is just like, oh cool, like I get a ramp and play big things, but like there is a lot of like very like hard decision points where you have to make like these very hard decisions, and they will directly impact your game very heavily.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but you can also just say, "Oops, double
Hit the
Magellan
curve.
on 10."
Yeah. I
Cry.
mean, if you hit Magellan, is great. It's
So like,
crazy.
there are hard points, but there are also just games where you just drew the nuts in your hand, you just win because you drew.
Right.
So that's the other thing. Like you can probably see 3 of those games, and so you have like 5 more games of harder decisions. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I think maybe my main thing that I was surprised at was I really thought Bonnie would have ended up as higher rep. Not that like the Dofi matchup is free, but something like on the easier side, like you just kind of hope you drew the right things and you just put them on board, and then like, oh well, like oops, like like I drew 2 carrots, like what does this guy do to me?
Carrot kid.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
and like of course, I the Bonnie versus Lucci matchup is incredibly difficult, right? Like sometimes, like especially just because like most of the Bonnie cards are good versus Dofi, I just would have thought that we would have seen more Bonnie, and then like maybe they were just tagged with like 8 cost Rosinante or something, or like just trying to be like lower and just like doing like double 5s, stuff like that. So I'm surprised it ended up like being less repped than Purple Luffy, at least in this tournament.
What?
I feel like
That's
part of that was just
It's.
I just feel like part of that is just because going into like the 8.5 format, like you said, like Dofi's just not an easy deck to just pick up from the start, especially if you're coming from a deck like Lucci or BY. Like you have to change your complete playstyle in the deck. But it's just like I think people just naturally, because like Lucci was the most rep deck for the past like format and a half, and I think people just naturally want to stick on that just because it has like a technically good matchup into Dofi, right? Obviously things need to go your way, but generally people would say Lucci is favored into Dofi and things like that. So it just seems like a natural pick to stay on, and then that might have just deterred a lot of the Bonnie players from wanting to play it.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think.
Yeah,
I'm in terms of Bonnie list, because we have it here right now, like this is probably kind of similar to what I would have ran if I played Bonnie, but I know that for the Wisconsin regional, Quan Lei, who won, he chose not to play the 8 cost Rosinante. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I mean, I've been testing it a little bit now, because I just didn't really want to test Bonnie before the regional, but 8 cost Rosinante like seems really good on paper and then really bad in practice.
I mean, if they just have the out, like it's terrible.
Yeah.
But if like something sticks from that, like if you stuck Cavendish off of that, I don't know, it's pretty good. But if they they have Jack, then like who cares? Like I guess at least into Alucci. Like if they had Jack on 7, and then you play that, and they just say Ice Age turn, Gecko play, you just lose in the spot. So I don't know. I mean, it's fine, but
it seems to be like exactly that sequence where like because you want to play Rosie on curve, that's when it sounds the best. But then your Lucci opponent went Jack on 7, and then that exact scenario happens where he just full clears your board anyways, even though like you're supposed to be at least like one body that lived, right? At least you got a 5 cost to stick, and then maybe you can do something else next turn. But yeah, like it seems to be that it doesn't even work half the time. So it's like it seems 50-50. It just really seems based on your opponent, right? And how well they open.
Yeah. I will say that like on paper the Rosie sounded better in other matchups, but a lot of times it just feels like very clunky to like go like Rosie play Cavendish or something, and then like you swing for 6, like if you and maybe like another 6 or something if you stuck something from your 6 on turn. It just like turns out that like paying 8 to play 2 bodies and sometimes the 5 cost you play doesn't actually impact the board state feels very sad. Whereas like if you go like if you already have Cavendish on board, for example, but you play Kid, and then it's like, okay, well I'm an 8k leader now, right? It's like very different levels of like of like power in terms of like I paid 8 for something and like the board state is entirely different.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say that go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna just ask like what besides I guess like black decks in general, is there just because like I don't really play Bonnie, is there like a matchup that we're really looking to like, slam 8-drop in and then it's like supposed to be good on paper? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's definitely just the black matchups, right? But like also against like Dofi, like it like depending on the board state, and if you're dropping like Carrot or something, right? Or if you already have a Carrot and you're dropping a Cavendish, it can be very good because it gets 2 cards out of your hand as well. Because like one of the problems like as Bonnie so far in my testing is like sometimes you just cannot afford to counter like your 5 costs away, and then you end up in like a really bad situation where like you're hoping they don't putting you at like 7 cards, 8 cards, but then it's like if they do, it's more often not better for them, even though it seems very slow as like the Dofi player or something like that, right? So like those situations where you can dump 2 cards and still get value is like very nice, and like of course you can't like if it lives in AK body versus Dofi is like very good, right?
Agreed.
But yeah, like I think just on paper though, like it's mostly for the black matchup, and you were hoping it's also good against Dofi, but like it happens to just not feel, or at least in my testing, it does not feel very great against Dofi.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think too many things have to line up.
It does set up your 10 cost play though, which is very nice.
Yeah.
That's its main use is that it sets up Cavendish, and then you can just say, all right, 10 Dofi. Haha, and Donna.
Yeah.
that's like I think its main use, but if it doesn't stick, then who gives a shit? Like,
right. Yeah. And then like even into Dofi, it's you can get like Jozu, right, and it just gets bounced back, and
I will say the Shanks card though, I only played one when I played side events, just because I wasn't sure how good it was, but like this card is better than I had hoped, but also at the same time like it's not as good as I'd hoped. Because like paying 9 to pop 1 dude is only so good, right?
11k body though. Yeah, pretty big.
Dude, this guy slap.
This guy's.
I mean, he's pretty good. Yeah, I feel like when you're playing into black and you just get to go to like, okay, cool, I play 9 cost, pop your Gecko, or like pop your Yisha, or whatever you just play, like your Jack, for example. It's just like, oh, that's really good because they previously had no way of answering Jack, but it's still the problem of like you still can't answer Jack on curve. He goes Jack on 7, and then even if he does, end up like resting it, it's just like you still have no answer for it.
The only answer is Bonnie. Yeah.
Right.
But it's definitely like this card is like super good the taller the format gets, but it's also just like we're just not in the right format for it to be like 3 copies, 4 copies consistently, So I think it's like not like disappointing, but like it's very interesting. Like the card feels very strong when it hits the board. It's just hard for it to hit the board, right?
Yeah.
So that's San Diego regional. Overall, how'd you feel about it, Richie? Like I think it's awesome that Nikki won. I didn't realize until that day that Nikki had not actually won a regional.
Either. I was just like, that man is honestly one of the goats. I was like, this guy has like what,
Nikki is
9,
just
10
a goat.
serials.
So I'm glad Nikki won. I'm glad the finals was Nikki versus Holden. Like those two guys, they're crazy.
I mean, I've always been one to say like every time I watch Holden play, I feel like I learned something new, and I feel like I learned how to like almost like maximize my efficiency because the way he plays is just very clean. It's very efficient, and it's almost like very little mistakes to no mistakes at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, and I definitely recommend people to like if Holden ever like uploads his gameplay. I think that's one person to like kind of pick his brains on. It's like he plays a very interesting, just very clean.
Also, I've never DM'd Nikki, but I've DM'd Holden like a fair amount, and like he's the nicest guy I've ever DM'd. Like he just entertains your dumb shit sometimes, and then like, but he also is like very insightful. So he's definitely a very cool guy to talk to.
Yeah. I'd say overall event was super fun. I think it was pretty smooth. I think just besides like us starting a little bit later, I think that's just like
I mean, that's in-person events, right?
Yeah, like in-person events, you know, you're just gonna start a little bit later, but that's whatever. But overall, event was pretty good, ran smoothly, and yeah, no complaints here.
I will say, I really hope we run another event at that convention center, or at least in San Diego.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you spent some time like afterwards, like just hanging out in San Diego, but beautiful city.
Beautiful city. Yeah. I love it out there.
Right next to the ocean too.
Yeah, like the food was so good there. Like I don't know how much food you tried there, Richie, because you flew in Saturday, flew out Sunday, right?
Yeah, I'll just say that Josh took us to a place that I don't know. I didn't really have like I was just like super hungry, and then he took us to a place, and I was just like, it was okay.
Oh, I had really good food. Yeah, at least.
I think I need to go eat with you guys next time, so we'll see.
This is your fault. You never hang out with us.
Like, true. Never.
It's true. I had to get in and out. I was just like, man, I just got to get in. I really wanted to play. I really wanted to just show up and, you know, see if I could perform. Yeah. Almost did. But we'll get there next time.
There's always next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, San Diego regional, pretty cool. I think interesting results, but let's have more regionals in San Diego. I gotta say, I'd prefer San Diego over LA. That convention center was really nice too.
Yeah, I just think the problem also with LA is just like you have a lot of traffic mixed in with everything else. So for people to like factor that into like going to the tournament, right? You're potentially waking up at like tournament starts at like 8-9 a.m. You gotta factor in like this extra 30 minutes of traffic. I don't know. That's just a lot.
Now let's talk about the online treasure cup. How'd you end up doing it, JP?
I was X3. I wasn't really planning on playing because we just moved and you know there's still stuff to do all through the house. Yeah, I played Smoker and honestly like went pretty well. The deck is super fun. My 3 losses were to 2 Dofis, which I played 5, so I beat 3 of them, and then 2 Alucci. And like quite literally, all 3 of my losses were just because I never found a Rebecca. Essentially, like that's what it boiled down to. I just couldn't find a blocker, so the Dofi's just like, haha, 7. I'm like, that's pretty good. Looking at my hand of all bricks, I'm like, dang. Oh, do you have the femur? You sure did. Okay. Like though, my first loss, I think it was 4-0, was the guy. He blind flipped Jinbei into Weevil, and then he had Jinbei Weevil already. Already, and then he bowed and bottom decked it, and then said, "Hey, let's flip again. Oh, look at that Weevil or a Jinbei," and they grabbed that, and then played Moria to grab back the Jinbei I killed. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know what to say.
I don't think you're winning that match no matter what.
No. So yeah, but it was fun though. Good time. Smoker, I think it's a legitimate deck. It's definitely like tier 2, but I think it's definitely better than people give it credit for. That Tashigi card is busted.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Because it made the BY matchup a cakewalk.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think the results for this treasure cup I think are kind of more in line with what I expected, except maybe I kind of expected more Dofi. I think maybe like the common thing here is that like I really thought there would have been more Dofi topping in general, but I guess the deck is hard enough, or maybe the deck's not nearly as strong as we thought. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Like, I really thought Dofi was like going into 8.5, it was going to be far and away the best deck, but like it seems more and more closer to like it's probably the best of the tier 1 decks or the most consistent of the tier 1 decks, and then like yeah, and then like it's not like far and away the best. The longer we've been in this format.
I don't know if we've only been in the format for what, a week for this tournament. So like, the way you got to look at it, in my opinion, I think once people get the hang of the deck, it'll do better. But like everybody who's playing Lucci right now is just saying, I'm gonna tech for Dofi. I've been playing Lucci for the last 6 months. I know how to play this deck and I can beat the Dofi decks. And then you have to also account for Dofis being themselves in mirrors and all that kind of stuff. So it's like think of it, OPO3 lost probably the best deck, like 3 and 4, but it was never the highest topper because it's harder to play, and it was always going to be like Whitebeard with 10 tops out of 32, saying, 7 to life.
So, I definitely see that perspective. I think maybe I'm just like not necessarily like in the same mindset because how do I put it? I just think the expectation versus the reality of it was a little too far apart for me. Where like I was ready for like, oh, like we're playing like tier 0 Dofi in 8.5, right? Mm-hmm. And then in 09 it'll be like tier 1. But like I don't know, in the testing it just feels like this deck is really strong, it does really disgusting things, but like most of the time it's just like the top of tier 1, and then sometimes like you like they open a hand and like, wow, that's tier 0. That's fair. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. Like they go like teach into like Jinbei Weevil, Jinbei Boa, teach, or like Jozu teach something on top, and I'm like, wow, I don't even know what you do. Like
you have like 5 bodies by like your 6th on turn.
Yeah. And then other times it's like it's pretty tame. It's like, okay, they play like a Weevil, and then they Jinbei Boa, and then they played like 2 more bodies, but they're all like 6Ks, 5Ks, and then maybe my deck had a good answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like the difference. Like where I thought like we were really gonna be like every single game is like, damn, this guy's 5 bodies on turn 3. How do I survive?
I want to say I've never, so like back in 03 I was playing Dofi, but like everybody always told me that, you know, Zoro is just like one of those decks, right, that you have to be very efficient with the Dawn that you use and how you swing, because at the end of the day it's an aggro deck. For Dofi, you know, I want to say you can kind of teeter, you can almost like, you know, flip the switch on based on what you want to do, and you can kind of pivot in the game, which is, it's a little bit maybe better than Zoro in some ways, but it's also one of those things where I feel like you still have to be very efficient with the Dawn. You have to be, you know, you have to be very mindful about where you're swinging. You can't be like swinging 7s into 6s, just letting him get like free 2Ks, for example. I feel like once people kind of like iron that out and, you know, get some more reps into Dofi and realize like, all right, we need to be efficiently like pressuring our opponent in a good way, and then they'll start to like kind of come up with more tops.
Yeah. No, I see that. Because like, let me put it this way, like I feel like Dofi now, to me, is where Whitebeard was post bans. Like I don't think it's like tiers, like, because I don't think Whitebeard post bans was tier 0. I think like Whitebeard when we had like Izo was like, okay, that's tier 0. Or like Izo searching for 9 cost, like that felt tier 0.
That shit was fun.
Yeah. But like Whitebeard with only like 1 9 cost, and you have to, and then you just like, it's like, yeah, like this guy 9 bearded on 1 life, and then I lost my out hoping he would go to 0, right? It's like,
yeah,
that was more, that felt more tier 1 to me. Yeah.
I think the consideration is just that Dofi is a deck that traditionally does not play very much top end. So I think in most games, if you're able to weather out the first like 5 turns of aggression, or if he has like a mediocre start, then you can kind of try to take over later in the game, because you know that he tends to have a weaker late game, and you know you have like better boss monsters, Gecko Moria, Yamato's, ACOS Kid, you know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to also say, like, I do think that currently, I want to say if you're the best, if you're really good at BY and you can express your skill in that way, I think BY is probably my pick for best deck of the format. But yeah, it's very hard to pilot that deck at that kind of level, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, you gotta take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, like that's yeah. I think that's the thing, right? Like I like going into 8.5, I thought we were gonna say Dofi was the best deck, but like actually playing 8.5, I'm just saying like it has to be BY. Like,
Yeah.
if everything goes right, like BY just wins. Like,
Right. And then you're also still able to tech for your bad matchup, which is Bonnie. But even then, it's like we're not even seeing the types of Bonnie representation that we were seeing back in 07 and 08.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, did you guys feel the same way about like heading into 8.5? Were you thinking that Dofi was gonna be the best deck?
I'll be honest. I thought BY was still gonna be the best. Just because I knew the matchup was so like miserable for Dofi if they didn't win, like on turn 4, or they had like the good techs or good answers to big hands and whatnot, like having pudding, and you still just beat Lucci unless you're a menace like Fee and running like 6 Nightmare Loopies or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, yeah,
goat,
it's just such a it's just
BY
such a strong
murderer.
deck. Yeah, he really is. Yeah, because like Dofi, it's good, but like there is, yeah, like Richie was saying, I guess, yeah, it does feel a lot like Zoro in the sense that like if you weather the storm and they aren't efficient, then they just kind of lose. And there's a lot of bad Dofi players because, as you saw for San Diego, 300 people picked up the deck. I'm gonna assume 2/3 of them are probably not that great. So I don't know.
It's just like still learning, right? But I think as time goes on, they'll definitely improve. But yeah, it's just one of those like Zoro things. I think people are just not being efficient at where they're swinging, or they're just not pressuring correctly, because the deck is, you know, essentially on a timer because you don't have top end. Unless you have top end, then you can play a different style.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. I think the other thing is also just like I feel like there's actually like a lot of like Dofi counters, but like that aren't like nearly as obtuse as like when we were playing 03. Like we had like Whitebeard counters, and then they lost to literally everything else in the format. Whereas like now we have like you can play Bonnie like 4-8 cost. It's like you pretty much only lose to Lucci, like hard lose to Lucci, and then it's like, or like you can play Enel, and then the same thing. You just like you pretty much only like hard lose to Lucci, and then you can pretty much play every other matchup. You know what I mean? Like
that's pretty fair, I'd say.
Yeah. So it's just interesting, like where the expectation met reality there, or didn't meet reality there.
Yeah.
I will. So I think that's so. In terms of this treasure cup, Jackson won. Jackson's the go.
100%. That guy's the go.
He's nuts.
Not much to say there.
Win a treasure cup, win a region. Like this guy is just gonna pick up wins everywhere.
Yeah, and he picked up a new deck too. He decided to do it with Dofi this time instead of BY. Yeah, he's like, I'm just that good. He's like, well, I guess I win every game.
I will say that like when I was watching Dofi, like the big part of the reason why I thought Dofi was like gonna be by far and away the best deck was that I was watching Jackson and Jonas like every now and then, like when they would hop into whatever channel I was sitting in, and they were playing webcam games. Like, holy dude, like that deck, like, they make the deck look so good sometimes. Holy shit. So, but let's talk about Madison just a little bit. This is the regional that Greyson went to, and he took the same 50 that I did, playing Lucci. And I guess maybe in terms like Madison is probably where the results matched what I expected more. Like mostly Dofi in the top 16, and then everything else is just like whatever. Like take your pick of one or two of X deck, you know?
Yeah.
Let's see. So who ended up winning? Kwanlei ended up winning. I kind of figured that there would be a Bonnie that would, at some point in this 8.5 cycle, that would win. I mean, has to be Kwanlei though, right? He's the green goat.
True.
Sure is.
True.
He dumpstered me in Peoria last time. Oh my god.
What did he play against you in Peoria?
I was on Gecko, and I felt so good about that matchup until he dropped his third 10 cost Dofi all unsearched. I'm like, that's pretty good. All right. Guess I lose.
Yeah, that's the Bonnie would come there.
It sure is.
But, yeah.
I was like, oh, I have all bricks. You have Hody too? All right. GG.
Yeah. I think in terms of like deck list, like Quan took like a deck list that I feel like was pretty like not very different from what was expected. Like, or I guess the only thing that was different was like I guess he just chose not to run 8 cost Rosie. And then if you're keeping up with like the 09 meta, Bonnies don't run Erosion anymore, really, just because like it's hard to keep on board versus Dofi, so it's just like whatever. Like if you're gonna play a blocker, like play like 1 cost Beige or something if you want the blocker slots. I think it's interesting he took the 2 cost killer, but maybe just try and get some more value where you can. It's an interesting tech choice, I think, because at least it also has counter. I think good choice by him for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I love that
But
card.
overall,
That killer card is one of my favorite cards, like from
this card
OP01.
needs a better altar.
It does, besides the top player one, I guess.
I mean,
Yeah,
you can
that's
get the
right.
green one.
Him and 5
the,
cost Hawkins.
No, it's
wherever.
blue, right?
Oh yeah, is it blue? I don't know. There's like one that's like it just changes the background of the card.
It's from like the new player pack or something.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
love that
yeah.
card though. But it's good. I mean, if they can't out it and you just draw a card after they're putting you,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty decent. I don't know.
Usually though, like if they do out it, it's like you're not even like that mad about it because it's like if you're gonna out the killer, it's like okay, yeah.
And then I guess I'll talk about the list because me and Grayson are in the same 50. Pretty, I think, standard, like considering 8.5. I think the big thing is that like a lot of people are on 4 Brook 3 cost, but me and Grayson found that like the 4th copy was super unnecessary. Like you pretty much always saw it when you needed to on 3 copies, and like if you see like 3 copies of Brook, it's like what is happening? Like you don't need to see 3 copies. So we shaved a copy there. In order to like keep up to 3 copies of Sabo, because we expected to still see enough mirror. So 3 copies of Sabo kind of, or more copies of Sabo helps you out in the mirror a lot, because then you just don't have to engage in this bullshit of like, did you draw more Gecko combos than me? I don't know. Like,
Back to 08 again.
yeah, so like we just opted out of that. I like key like changes I think from the 07 list is definitely like putting these Hinas in. Like they're so me personally, I don't find them particularly impressive, but they do what they need to do a lot of the times. Like you play Brook on 3, if they only single body and you go Brook swing or not Brook, Hina swing your Brook on 5 or something, or like Rebecca Hina swing your Brook, very good. I will say that like after this weekend, I would rather just play only Soap Sheep and no Hinas. We ended up running 3 Soap Sheep for this event. Good against Dofi. It's very good. I will say that like as Lucci players, like if you're playing against Dofi and you get double Jinbade like on turn 2, turn 3 by Dofi, it's unwinnable without Soap Sheep. I don't think you can win. I mean, like I'm sure there's like dumb things that can happen where you win without Soap Sheep, and like double clearing one of the back-to-back Jinbays, but I'll be honest, like in terms of like Lucci tech versus Dofi, like I think the Uta was just like you need to see it on 2 or like you're gonna lose the game. Like Hina is like it's good when you have it, but like it doesn't save you from getting back-to-back Jinbade. If you only see one Jinbei and you have a clear, like the game is more or less playable, right? But getting back to back, you need Soap Sheep, otherwise the game's like unwinnable. So we ended up on 3 Soap Sheep. And then me personally, I was just a huge advocate for it when we were deck building, but like 2 Nightmare, just because if you don't have something against BY, you're just sitting there praying like I hoped I cut this guy's deck and he bricked. Like,
Hope he left his
Nightmare,
baby Sobbles out.
Yeah, so like if you have Nightmare and you see Nightmare on curve or like on 9 with a Rebecca in hand, the BY matchup is very playable. I will say that. Like I think you could argue that like if you see Nightmare and you actually stick it, the matchup is actually 50-50. But of course, like it hinges on seeing your unsearchable, really clunky 5 cost that has to sit on this board, and then like you have to have reduction too. So like do with what you will. So Grayson ended up going X2. I think he lost his last round to like a Dofi player, if I remember correctly, from what he said. Yeah, but Nightmare, but like he beat like 1 or 2 BYs I think with the Nightmare, and like there's no way like you're winning the matchup otherwise, more or less, if they draw normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. How do you guys feel about the Lucci list? Because I mean, we've all talked about it because like we've all considered it at some point, but like I don't know how you guys feel about the list that we ended up on, me and Grayson.
I don't know. I think you guys are maybe not. I don't know. I think there's an overvaluation of Helmetbo, for sure. Because I think 9 times out of 10, Suru just does the job, and she's also a 2K. Whereas like right now, like I'm working with I think 3 Suru, 1 Helmetbo, because it's just the 1 cost reduction out of hand like on 10 or 9 is really valuable if you don't have an event, which is great. You can also Suru Brook on 4 to clear the first body, which is really strong. You don't have to burn an Ice Age to do that, or Soap Sheep. I think I agree with Soap Sheep to an extent. I like the card, but I've been testing a lot of 09 recently, and I just playing without it. It's been fine outside of like the double or triple Jinbei high roll.
Yeah,
it's like whatever. I think I'm just taking the L to that, or just hoping I have Ice Age Brook, Brook on 3, Ice Age Lucci, and that clears the first double at least. Nah, I don't know.
Pretty
but
good.
It's pretty good. But I agree on Uta though. After more testing, it's like more flexible, especially just because. Not so much for the fact that you can play at any time, that's fine, but I think it's just not good into the mirror. And if the mirror is going to be highly represented, like it just dies immediately. If you play it on curve, it just Brook and then
it's
dies.
just a break.
Yeah, it just dies. So Soap Sheep's definitely better there. I just don't know if we need it. I'll be honest.
No, I will agree with you that like I don't think Soap Sheep is needed. I think like Holden ran a list that didn't run Soap Sheep, and like he ran a very standard list that was basically the same as the 07 list.
Yeah.
Right. Or 08, sorry. The 08 list, and like honestly I think like if you don't care, like you should just play that. But I don't know, I hate getting high rolled and like not having like any kind of option, like especially when the high rolls honestly like I don't know, maybe I'm just like biased because like it's happened to me so often, but like it feels like it happens a lot where you get double Jinbei. So I'm just like fuck it, if this is what's gonna happen, I'm gonna play Soap Sheep. And then like if I draw it and they don't have a second Jinbei and I Soap Sheep Lucci on 5 or something, right? And they don't have a second Jinbei and they lose the game on the spot, good enough for me. Like, whatever.
That's fair. I guess like in my games this weekend too, like just put Smoker where they don't have a double clear without Jack, or if you're running Sabas, like usually like if sure if they have the double Jinbei, but 9 times out of 10 they don't. I mean, not 9 times, like 7 times out of 10 they don't. And you can just like maintain.
So sometimes, okay, listen. Sometimes out of 10 against you.
I play 5 Dofies. I don't know what you want from me. But
this Ritchie guy has double Jinbei me 9 times out of 10.
Ritchie cheats. Ritchie marks his cards. I don't know what you want from me.
No, it's just like the Jinbei card calls to me. It knows that I've been waiting for this day.
But no, the thing is like if you can just maintain popping one body, essentially, or leaving them with one, it kind of works out math-wise to where it's fine. To where like you don't need Soap Sheep, and you can probably cut the brick count down to where you're not just like overrun, essentially. Because
I agree with you,
everything
but
in hand.
I agree with you because that's my point, right? Like you only it's only ever unplayable if you get doubled back to back.
Yeah.
Right. Back to back on turn 2, turn 3.
Yeah.
It's like unwinnable. But it's also like fundamentally different because like because Smoker like does not have to run 22 bricks more or less, right? Like does not have to run 22, right?
It doesn't.
Lucci has
Smoker's build is a little bit different because of the Sengoku, I think.
Yeah,
like
Sengoku.
Lucci has to run.
Yeah.
Because the Lucci list has to run 20 bricks, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's like bare minimum 20 plus like, depending on your text, I guess they kind of go all over the place.
Yeah. But more or less I agree with you that like if you can single clear and they don't double you on turn 2, turn 3, then it's like it's great. The matchup is very playable. You just have to see your top end and hope everything works out.
Yeah. I mean, like looking at it statistically, right? 50 card deck, chances they see double Jinbei are still like they're low. Obviously, like anecdotal bias, you remember it because it happens. But like
the guy opens like double Sengoku. I don't know.
Yeah, like fine. I mean, like, but that's
right.
The thing. Like they see 16 cards if they open up double Sengoku, or 17 or 18 by that. So they'll have they might have 2 at that point. But like, how often does that happen? So I don't know. It's like it sticks in your head when it does happen, but fucking believe me, because it happened this weekend, and that's the only game I really remember. But I don't know.
I don't know, dude. Every game I played against Ritchie, I'm sitting there like, yeah.
It's definitely not every game, but it definitely happens a little bit more than it should.
Whatever you say, back to the Suru Hamepo thing. Yeah. I agree with you that like more or less like Suru is mostly fine, especially like the way the math works out a lot of the time is like you always need double event anyway to double clear, or like or your event has to specifically be Ice Age, because even if you have a single Tempest kick, if you want to double clear, no matter what the reduction is in your trash, you need to have a second 1 cost reduction. It's just that in very specific cases or lineups where it's like you have Tempest kick, Suru, and no other reduction in your hand, you cannot double clear, right? The only way you can double clear
for like the black mirror or something. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, in the black.
Okay, I was like,
yeah.
I think you just need an event, man. But all right,
yeah,
sure. Whatever you say.
In the black mirror specifically, where you're trying to clear an 8 and a 4, like Tempest Kick plus Suru, and then like Suru and Trash does not double clear. You very specifically do need a Helmet Bow in that case, but most of the time it works out where like you have 2 Tempest Kicks, or you have like Soapsheet plus Tempest swing, and then whatever, right?
Or just Ice Age.
Or well, in this case too, Soapsheet plus Tempest does not clear.
Yeah.
You need the Helmet Bow, but it's like you need to value Helmet Bow based on how many black mirrors you're gonna see, right?
Yeah,
and I think, like honestly, if you showed me a list that's like 3 Suru, 4 Suru, 1 Helmet Bow, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine, whatever, who cares? Like I just thought that there was gonna be still a lot of mirror, so like not being able to double clear in the mirror feels really bad.
No, totally agree.
Yeah, that's it.
So are you going first or second in the mirror
now? First right now.
Okay,
I mean, there's just no good play on 4. So you have to go second.
So I guess like to that end, it's like.
Or first, sorry.
If we're expecting a lot of the mirror or expecting multiples of the mirror, then doesn't it? I don't know. Like the math does usually work out because you're prioritizing Jack, so you just need Ice Age, and then you have double clear because you have Jack.
I always assume Jack gets removed, and if it sticks, I don't really think about what the math is after that.
I guess that's fair.
If Jack sticks, like the math will work out on its own.
Yeah, you know? But the only way for Jack to not stick though is not with the Gecko play on 8. You can't do it. So it's like too.
If you play Jack on 7 and if they play Gecko, it doesn't matter. Like you'll figure out a way to clear both the 8 and the 4 they play. What matters is like if you can double clear without with your Gecko play or whatever play you have in hand. Right? So like Jack sticking is like the cherry on top of that. So I never like to think about them on that.
I was gonna mention that I think that part of having Helmet also like into the mirror is just like if your opponent decides to or if he just like doesn't have Gecko, right, and he decides to slam Jack on board, and like Ice Age Gecko like with Helmet and Trash is like a really clean way to answer that, but with Suru you don't get there either to just clear Jack, right? And you know Jack is usually one of those cards where like hey, if he sticks in the mirror you probably lose
for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, and this is more to JP's point, right? Like if you didn't expect a lot of mirror, like you should just play more copies of Suru.
Yeah. I think you guys were just like, I think you guys definitely expected more of the mirror, but then looking at the actual results for Greyson at least, like he was the only Lucci that made it to top 16. We don't know top 32.
Two mirrors is a thing.
Okay.
If I remember what he said, he played at least one for sure because he told me about it. But I'm pretty sure he played 2 mirrors. So it's just like, I mean, it's not like 4 mirrors or whatever, right? But like 2 mirrors in like the Helmet probably came out. It's kind of like the thing, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Another. So yeah, I think I'll just talk about it just because like I'm kind of interested in your guys' thoughts on it because I think only me and Grayson really talked about it in the chats. Was like now after the regional, like the big regret was not being on the 4th Jack because. I mean, when you just don't see a top end versus Dofi, it's just so sad. Like, if you stabilize, and it's like, I'm just sticking Lucci's on board, and they're getting bounced. Like, it doesn't feel good. So, regretted not being on the 4th copy of Jack a little bit. And then, of course, dropping Hinas, because it's like, they're not more impactful than Soap Sheeps, and just, like, filling out other things, like playing an extra copy of Suru, playing an extra copy of, not Brook, it was, was it the 4th Sabo? Oh no.
Maybe like a 3rd Spanding. Oh, a 4th Tempest Kick, right.
4th Tempest Kick, and then also like going back to the 3rd Spanding, because like one of the issues that like I was talking about in testing was like, sure you can stabilize, but and drop a Gecko, but if your Gecko's not playing Rebecca Spanding, like it feels very like sketchy sometimes. Like you just won't have enough counter to actually be at 1 life and then chain blockers together. But you need to put Gecko on board so that way you can actually win the game. So like going to like the 3rd Spanding, so like the list would look something like this. Let's just actually put it together. This, and this. And that's 50 cards? Yeah, it's 50 cards. So 3rd Spanding. Am I missing something? Oh, and then dropping this 0 cost to play the 2nd Suru.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It cleans up the list a lot more. And like I think this is like probably where like my ideal list is. Other than like, if Dofi drops off, I would like to play Kuzans.
Yeah, man, you and me both. He ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, all of us, right? I think we all love Kuzan.
Sure do.
I think I'm just curious your guys' thoughts about the list from this point here, because like I think this is probably what I'm going to be running for the rest of the format.
I think from my experience, I think for Jack, this format is pretty good, just because it's like, from my experience as a Dofi player, the game that I lost in Swiss versus Lucci, and then just versus like Lucci in general, my experience has been if they stick Jack on 7, it is pretty bad for me because I'm now on a faster clock than before, right? Because before essentially it's just like me having to worry about his Morias, but now if he has a Jack and he's able to triple clear my board, I'm probably going to be behind. And then also the play is almost never always correct to like swing into the Jack, just because you swing into the Jack, you buy him a turn to where you develop like almost nothing, and he can just play Gecko.
Easily develop nothing, right? Maybe like a sideways body, but like
I don't know. I think I would have to test it more, but just from my experience, I think every time I've swung into Jack, I just fall further behind.
Oh yeah. So yeah. I mean, like when you swing into the Jack, you should always only end up with one sideways.
Right. With the sideways body.
I'm not saying you should swing into the Jack. Yeah.
Right. But that's just been my experience. I think if you have Jack on 7 versus Dofi, your chances of winning are going to go up a lot higher.
Yeah. It's just too good. What can you say?
Yeah, and then like you said, like in the mirror too, right? You guys are just opting to go first. People are not playing Kuzan, so you don't really have a way to respond to this Jack as the guy going second, unless you have the nuts, which is like Ice Age plus Reducer,
Yeah.
I will say like a quirky thing about the mirror now, just because there's no Kuzans, and so there's not like a greed value play on 4 and 5, right? Is that like if they don't play like something that like you need to remove, or like you can't even remove anyway, like they play Sabo on 5 in the mirror, and then on your 6 you play Nightmare, they cannot play Jack. It's just like it's just like a loss. Like if they go Jack, if they go Jack and you go like Ice Age, Helmeppo, swing your Luffy, and then play Sabo behind it, like it's just a lost mirror, actually. Which is I think like one of the nice things about playing Nightmare is that you recover a little bit of like that like feels bad of not having Kuzan on 4. It's like at least you can play Nightmare preemptively on 6 to stop them from jacking on 7.
I guess this is all in relative to where he doesn't play Brook on 3, right? Because if he has Brook on 3, he can actually jack your Nightmare.
Oh man, if they play Brook on 3, whatever, we'll figure something out. We'll figure something out. Let's just pretend it doesn't happen, okay?
But I agree with that. I think that is definitely something that's like pretty interesting to bring up. Where like Nightmare Luffy, he kind of stops you from playing Jack, right? Because you don't really want to get him free value.
Sure.
Okay, so I think that's that for in terms of the actual regionals and treasure cups. Let's just I mean we've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but do you guys want to just talk about like overall thoughts on 8.5 so far? Like you guys want to go first?
You got it, Richie.
I was gonna say like we could talk about it as we bring up the power rankings, because I just want to talk about the deck that's on.
Oh, do you want to make that to me? I
sure do.
Don't remember.
I think it's right there. It's at the top of his.
Oh.
Is that the updated one?
Is this updated?
Oh, that's for the 31st, Rip.
So sad.
Nope. Oh wait, hold on. Do I have access to this? I do. Hold the phone. The matchmaking. Didn't they tweet it?
I thought they did.
I saw it in one of my discords. Like somebody just put it there.
Oh, no, I found it.
Yahoo!
Oh my god! Of course it would be like.
Oh no!
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
Weekly
This is
power
what we want
ranking.
to talk about.
Okay, Smoker Copium. Yippee!
Smoker Copium.
Okay. So
I think for one, I'm a big fan of Smoker, and I think so is JP.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My king.
So I guess let's just talk about 8.5, or I guess winners of 8.5 for sure, Dofi, right? I think of course Smoker, like Tashigi is fucking broken.
Card's sick.
Well, I mean, it's not broken. It's just it is like rightfully very strong and should be, right?
Yes.
I'm not gonna complain about getting like double Tashigi or something. Like the card is
shit.
very good, but also like very like.
It's not bad on paper, right? You get hit with double Tashigi, and that's like very normal. That's just like, hey, he popped one dude, he played a 5-6. That's pretty normal.
Yeah, he popped a dude played a 5-6. Like I'm not gonna play this. Like it's annoying.
Right.
But it's like whatever.
It's not broken.
Very,
it's
very
not
rightfully powerful.
crazy.
It's honest
Right.
gaming, fair and honest gaming, like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, compared to playing Gecko and like double clearing and putting
Yeah.
a blocker, pretty fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty good winner. I would say from the starter decks, green, like just as a color, also kind of like got like a small win in terms of Shanks, like not having real removal for the entirety of the game so far, and then like having a boss monster with a gun, pretty good.
Yeah.
Boss monster with a gun.
Like, what are you gonna say? He enters the field and he puts a bullet and anything skull. Like,
Yeah,
that's
true.
pretty good.
He just takes it off, and it's like that was really what green was missing, because before, like, you just chain Tendo fees, right? And then if you don't have the second or third Tendo fee, like, you're honestly in a pretty bad spot. But it's like, cool, now we have a card that can get us an extra turn to chain Tendo fees.
Yeah. So Grayson woke up. He's here. Let's talk about your Wisconsin run, even though we've already talked about the deck list.
It was like a Mickey Mouse event. I think it was like 60% Dofi. It felt like, honestly, I just wouldn't expect that event to like ever happen again. Like I think it was a good representation of like how strong Dofi is, but those numbers didn't look realistic to me.
Yeah.
Like the room almost was entirely Dofi and like Bonnie and Nell. It was like everything I saw just like glancing around top tables all day was like that was it. If you were playing Lucci, you were somehow the minority at top tables.
Yeah, as
So,
shown with your top 16, there's only one that's you.
Yeah, you're the only one that's top 16.
Yeah, I think it was me. I think I was the second highest placing one, and the next highest placing one is 17th, and that's Chris Pack.
Yeah.
Like the event was like very much like if you weren't teched for Dofi, you just weren't making it. It looked like.
Oh, yeah, makes sense. What were your matchups in total?
I played. Yeah, I do. I played 4 Dofi, a Nami, 2 Bonnie, a Lucci, and a BY.
Yeah, so the Dofi tech ended up working out for you.
Yeah, I lose to 1 Dofi, lose to 1 BY. Like both of them were like close games. The Dofi one was kind of just like a super brick in the start, so it was like I probably wasn't winning just because of my opener. And then the BY just came down to a 2K. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, I mean that was Grayson's run. Like Dofi will be Dofi, bro. Let's
Dofi
just
will be
talk
Dofi.
about overall meta. So I think did we start talking about it before Grayson hopped in?
Yeah, it's still about the winners and losers.
Winners
Yeah.
and losers. Yeah, we talked about winners and losers. Well, I guess we didn't really talk about any losers. Big loser so far is Nami, which we can consider a win.
Fucking W.
Screw that deck.
Yeah, that's definitely like
Biggest W.
it's celebrate time,
Yes,
honestly.
sir.
Yeah. So,
I still think like Nami will probably hang around.
Oh, of course.
But definitely not to the extent of where like it was last format.
yeah.
There's kind of
Honestly,
Curry's hanging
I
around
think-
when Law existed. Nah, that's crazy. So, I guess it'll exist. Whatever.
Yeah.
I think if the Nami matchup is even like slightly playable, Nami players will still play, honestly.
Yeah.
I guess so.
'Cause, like,
It's like what else you play?
BY, Bonnie, Lucci are all going up in representation, and L is becoming a playable deck right now. Like, Nami's matchup spread is like, oh, you played 2 Dofi for the day? Alright, you probably day 2.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then like, is it a win? I mean, Purple Luffy's playable, I guess. I mean, it was more playable before the format. I feel like it's more of a loss than anything. Right? Like
It's-
going into 8.5.
It's just a hard
I
deck
think
to
it's-
pilot.
Think so? I don't know. I just feel like the match.
I personally think so.
I think the issue is that like just it didn't get enough support to where Dofi doesn't just curb stomp it, at least yet.
Mhm.
So it's like it got better, but it didn't get better enough to where like the good matchups are good, and then it made its like Lucci matchup worse because like you don't have like I don't know Lucci's playing Kuzan and then you saying haha Polly, and then you saying all right double 5s till end of time, also 9 mom, also Kaido. So
Yeah.
I didn't look at the Luffy list, but in the in the Luffy list now, aren't they like cutting poly and stuff
Yeah,
too? So like it's just like so much more awkward, right? To like even address like an aggressive deck, right? That plays a
I
bunch of
don't-
board.
Yeah, it feels like their deck is kind of just like, yeah, I pray I see Luffy Taro into 9-Mom, and if I don't see exactly that, my deck probably doesn't work.
Yeah, like the Luffy that top 32 San Diego, like he's not even playing poly. Like, we're just
Right.
I don't even know.
It just seems like a mixture of what you would play from before 8.5 and then like going into 8.5 with the new starters, right? Because you just
Like, you just pick
the
values.
deck requires a little bit of luck and some high roll sometimes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's just, it's still just purple pile at the end of the day. I think they just
Purple
added
pile.
in the starter deck cards and said, we're gonna play Usopp, we're gonna play Luffy, we're gonna play Sanji, and we're gonna play Zoro, and Nami, maybe, if you're lucky.
Right.
And you have like 12 targets, and they're like, I hope I hit.
In terms of then, like other actual winner of us going into 8.5 was an L, right? Like I mean the deck not very good before, but I mean now has like pretty good matchups. Right?
It's
Really?
not only like
I was-
just the matchups, but also I feel like because Luchis are cutting Kuzans, and then like people are just not playing things to beat an L, obviously.
I mean like you obviously don't like win versus like Lucci, right? I mean, but you just have an avenue to win, and the same
Yeah.
thing versus like BY. Like I don't think you're favored; you just have an avenue. But like you have a really good matchup into Dofi, right? And if it's the most represented deck in the room, and like you see enough of them, like okay, you just win.
I was gonna say Bonnie might be the biggest winner for this format.
Yeah, I think Money definitely gains a lot, right? Like in terms of like having a good matchup to Dofi. Lucci's are gonna run less Kuzan. BY is gonna run less Kuzan. Like
Lucci also runs Jack and
That's
Brook
fair.
though, which makes Hawkins not stickable, essentially.
yeah.
So
We're back to like 3 and 4 Brooks.
Yeah. So it's I
Yeah.
think it's like just the one that's held constant, so to speak. It's just a different
I think I mean like your Lucci matchup got worse, but every other matchup got better, right? And like you have a new matchup that's like probably gonna be 40% of the room every event you go to. Like I don't know. Like I think overall you're just more lucky. Like you're almost guaranteed to see your worst matchup less.
Yeah.
So
unless they're in San Diego, then
Right.
Yeah, here in San Diego.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
for the
I
for the
guess,
Mickey Mouse event.
yeah.
So yeah, that's
Swan
where
Lee
we're at
came
right
in
now.
and he was like, "One Lucci, easy.
Easy.
We can deal with that."
How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel like this is probably where we're settling for 8.5, or do you feel like we're missing a couple sleepers in here, like in terms of like top decks? Because like that's more or less top 5, right? Like BY, Bonnie, Lucci, some level of or Dofi, and then like some level of any like take your pick, right? Of like what you really want to consider the 5th deck, because like they're all kind of bad.
Yeah, I think
those
every
are
deck is
fair.
just missing something compared to
Yeah.
like the other ones, right? You're just like not getting there as much, or you're just not as consistent.
I guess to talk about it, I think Smoker is like clearly like probably the 5th deck, right? If you ask me to name one, but I also think like the important thing is that like Smoker to me is better mono black Luffy.
Mhm.
Like if you
Agreed.
were gonna play mono black Luffy, why not just play Smoker?
Right. I just think I think the matchup for Smoker into Dofi is actually not that bad. I almost want to say it's favored, just obviously depends on what the other Dofi player opens, but generally if you're able to go first and you're able to slam a Tashigi on 5, and obviously best case scenario would be to have second Tashigi on 7, because it enables you to swing double 7s at whatever's rested on his board and still pop the thing that just came out.
Yeah.
Or just Ice Age if you had Brook on 3-2 on that 7.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very doable. Like I
Very
said,
doable.
the matchups weren't bad this weekend. But the Lucci matchup is like the dicier one, because you just get cooked by them sticking a jack. you have much fewer outs to that than they do, because they have Tempest Kick essentially. It's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the
mean,
out to
you're,
the
like,
Lucci matchup. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're playing like Smoker's probably like good, but yeah, like you're just playing worse Lucci, and like I don't think there's a matchup that makes it better.
Oh,
Lucci.
BY is far and away
It's only
so much
BY.
easier. Yeah. Like I mean,
Just
Tashigi and
Tashigi
Yusho is
crashing
just
everything is good.
you're cooked.
I think also being able to like dig through your deck, making sure that you're like the Sengoku drawing 3, and then making sure that you open a big body to like beat into them for the rest of the game. Versus like Lucci, you're kind of at the mercy of like, okay, I milled a couple Morias. I hope I draw the other copies, or vice versa.
Yeah, I will say the Sengoku card's honestly probably the best card they got. Maybe behind the probably behind the Tsuchigi, but it's like definitely like second best. That card's insane.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I think I was talking about it earlier today. It was like, imagine if like Sakazuki got that card. Like,
I mean, Guanrong has tested it for us. He's played like an unlimited Sokka, basically with the power of Sengoku, and he just said it was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, Filter 4 pre-searcher.
Yeah,
pretty good.
And fill your trash for free.
All right.
For one done, I'm here for it.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. 2 geckos. I win.
Look at that. My deck's all the way gone, and my Lucci can loot my deck forever.
Pretty good.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I guess back to do you guys feel like we're missed like any decks have, or does any other decks that have a chance show up? I'm very low hopes about the rest of 8.5. I feel like we're pretty set.
Red Green Law.
I wish.
I think that's one deck you can actually consider like talking about it, right? Because the matchup spread is pretty favorable. You just have to remember, right? You just lose into black.
Yeah, you just lose to Brook hitting the board.
Yeah.
You just
but
like,
if
you
you're
just,
okay
like,
with that,
you just like chant to yourself. You're like, Lucci isn't real. Lucci isn't real. Lucci isn't real, and then you top.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of decks that could top, yeah, that's probably one that, I guess wouldn't surprise me as long as you hit the right matchup spread.
Mm-hmm. You could go under the radar.
Mono Black Luffy is like similar to Smoker, I guess, and like same game plan style, but like I think Smoker is probably just better now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think like Black Luffy into Dofi is just not favorable at all. It's just not good for you.
Yeah, watching that matchup was like, oh, you just get poked for 6K all game. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Sanji's just not as good as Tashigi. Like, that's like the comparable card, and it's just...
Yeah.
Not
Tashigi was the better printed version of it.
Yeah, exactly. With counter, for some reason.
with counter, it's searchable.
I was gonna say, the card they got that might have been like the most impactful would have been like the 4-drop Hina. That card is kind of crazy for them.
I also think that's an underexplored card that people just haven't played around with.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I could see it being good and not exactly Lucci. I think Lucci just doesn't really have a like use for it. It looks like so far, but I could see like other decks just really like getting value out of it.
What don't you like about it, JP?
I mean, just from the smoker sense, you don't have. It doesn't do anything that you want to do in any of your good matchups or any of your matchups besides Lucci, kind of. And then it's just like, okay. I mean, we have a body on board, but they don't really care. I guess it's a 6K, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. Because like, if you look at it like the mirrors, essentially, like Sabo probably didn't leave the board if he played it on 5 because they're gonna be too busy clearing 8-4 unless they had Jack, like, or you were able to swing into it with your first Gecko or something like that. So it's like similar to that effect. I guess you get the extra Dawn, but I don't know. I just don't love it. It's better service to have those spots for Jack and Sabo or something, or Kuzan or Borsalino or something to that effect. I think.
Nice. I mean, I just like Slay. I love beaters that don't leave board. Can't complain.
That's fair. It's also dog in a Dofi. It does not do anything for you. You do not have time.
It swings 7.
You don't have time
terrible.
for it. That was the issue.
It swings 7.
Yeah. The only problem is you don't have time for it, but let's just say your opponent has a bad turn, right?
Sure.
And you get to just stick this Hina on 4 because, I don't know, like the guy blind flipped and whiffed or something, right? You're like so far ahead because this Hina will never leave the board.
I guess that's a fair point.
Dude, I'm playing Hina on 4 even if they hit. Who cares? Like, I'm gonna beat for 7 with this thing, and it's gonna get me back in.
True. Yeah, because you play the Tashigi the next turn, and you get 2 7s plus Tashigi. Honestly, I'm sold.
True. And then on 6, they put down Boa, Jinbei, Weevil, and they hit the gritty on you, and you lose.
Yeah, they were gonna do that anyway, regardless of you playing Hina. Who cares?
You were supposed to take his Junbeis out of his deck before the cut.
That's on me, gang. My bad.
Yeah, that's on you, honestly.
So their first swing, JP, you're supposed to trigger Soap Sheep, so they have to discard the Jinbei.
Oh, okay. Is Soap
By
Sheep
law.
is Soap Sheep in the smoker
That's
deck now, too.
crazy.
Yeah.
And
for
then
sure.
do you also have a gun underneath the table and say,
Oh
"Trash
no,
the
it's on
djembe"?
top of the table. It's not on
Okay.
top of it. It's not under. It's on top.
Oh my
I'm like,
She gone.
I'm like, what are you discarding? Your pick.
Not Jimbe? I don't think so,
I don't
buddy.
think so.
Crazy.
Looks like
Ah.
you have not a heartbeat and a 49 card deck because I also ate the djembe.
Shit. All right. I think that's all we have for opinions for now. So the rest of the month is just treasure cups, and then the first weekend of December is Dallas and Utrecht. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So probably we'll drop another episode, maybe right before Dallas. I feel like I'd rather, and then we'll talk about 09 probably because we'll have done some 09 testing right before Dallas.
Mhm.
Yep. So.
Oh, is Dallas 09 legal?
No, it's
No,
Oh, yeah, I didn't-
it's 8.5, but by that time, like,
Oh,
we'll have
like 2
tested
weeks
09.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like the last 8.5 tournament we have.
Yeah.
If you made it this far, thank you. I will say we do have a Patreon. We have just been slacking because a lot of life stuff happened about trying to post shit. So probably going into next month we'll have stuff posted. But if you guys want to support us, we have a Patreon. So go check that out. Link will be in the description. And thanks for watching, guys. Peace.